Right. Alright, hello everybody. My name's Beaver Cleaver. I go by many different aliases, but this will be the first time I've done something like this. I've decided to make a comprehensive guide on how to help people learn to aim. This is to help you guys in the Twitch community get better at FPS shooters. Doesn't matter which one it is. And so that's what I'm here for. I do have other ideas that I plan on doing later on, but this will be the start of it. I figured, why not go big and do something to help you guys? If you like the content, just please drop a follow or a like. But for now, let's get started. Alright, so starting off, first thing, I'm going to be doing this in both Overwatch and Apex Legends. It's typically the games that I play. But what's good about Overwatch and Apex Legends is that you can see the differences in how FPS games work. Overwatch is interesting because of the many different aspects that you can change, such as the reticle, and the different heroes, of course, but I'm not going to go into that. Either way, starting off, I'm going to talk about the reticle. So it's important to have a reticle that works for you. For me, I prefer just like a normal crosshair that's not too big, that's not in the way, and it's easy to see, so I have it as a green color, and it's not really getting in the way of anything. And so that's usually what I use. It's nice in Overwatch because you can customize your reticle. So I have a custom reticle for pretty much every hero, but since we're on Soldier 76, you can change it into whatever you want. So I have mine as a crosshair. You can have it as a circle. You can have it as a dot if you really wanted to. So just keep in mind, just change the reticles, have it the way you want, and then try to keep it consistent. So I pretty much have, like I said, I have this pretty much on every single hero. So that's kind of nice. But you also have to keep in mind, if there is no customizable reticle, you're going to have to practice a lot more with particular guns. And so that's where Apex Legends comes in. So I'm going to swap it over to Apex Legends here for a moment. Alright, so let's see. There we are. Alright, so we're on Apex Legends now. I'm in the practice range here. And you can see it's just the normal standard reticle. But you also have to keep in mind that the different guns have different reticles. So the P2020 here has kind of a large reticle. But if I go ahead and pick up the RE45, notice how the reticle gets a lot smaller. Okay? So, and this is why I'm saying you have to practice a lot more with different weapons in these types of games. The difference being, though, is that in this game, you can aim down sights, and I'll go over that in a little while. Alright. So let's go ahead and go back to Overwatch. If it'll allow me to. There we are. Okay. Sorry about that. So, mouse settings. It's good to know what mouse DPI, which is your dots per inch, that you're using. Usually, what dots per inch measures is how far your mouse travels on the cursor of your screen through the movement of your mouse. So typically, mice have a normal setting of like 800 to 1,000 DPI, but you have to go with what feels best for you. Usually, less sensitivity in an FPS game is better, and that's usually what I go with. So my particular settings in Overwatch and in Apex Legends, I use 1,000 DPI on my mouse, which you see right here, and my settings in game for Overwatch are 3.5, and in Apex Legends they're 1.4. It's also important to note that if you typical rule of thumb for when you're trying to calculate how much DPI you should have, or mouse sensitivity in general, is if you move your hand across your mouse pad, you should be able to do a full 360. And that's kind of how I have mine set up. So try to work around that. But you also have to keep in mind that if you have a smaller mouse pad, that your settings are going to be much higher. So you have to keep that in mind as well. I have a much larger mouse pad, so it's easier to go lower, is what I'm trying to say. All right, so mouse acceleration. If you don't know what mouse acceleration is, this is very, very important, so please listen. What it is it typically is default settings on your mouse, and you need to turn it off. And the reason for this is because if you have mouse acceleration, what it does is when you move your mouse, it increases the cursor distance depending on if your mouse is moving too quickly. So say, for instance, you are flicking, right? When you flick, it actually increases the distance and makes you throw off your aim. So for something like that, like if you're trying to turn around really quickly, it will throw off your aim completely. So this is why you want to turn off mouse acceleration. I'll tell you exactly how to do that. Oh, and also you want to turn it off because you want muscle memory. So what muscle memory is something to where your body remembers, I only have to move this distance to shoot at something. So, for instance, if I want to recall going to this guy, so I'm shooting at this guy and I want to go to this guy. That's through muscle memory. Yeah, it's not a very big distance, but muscle memory tells you, it dictates that for you, and that's something that your body needs to learn. Okay. So to turn off mouse acceleration on Windows 7, it's a little bit different than Windows 10. So I'll go over like getting to the mouse settings in Windows 7, but I'm also going to go over Windows 10 as well. So on Windows 7, you want to navigate to your control panel from the Start menu, which you can find in the bottom left corner of your Windows. You type in mouse in the search field, and at the top right corner of the control panel, you go into that. So that's for Windows 7. If you're on Windows 10, however, you have like a little Cortana search bar. All you have to do is type in mouse in that, and then you click on mouse, click on pointer options tab, you uncheck enhance pointer precision, you click apply, and hit OK. I'll go over that again. And I could actually show you guys too. But either way, if you don't know how to do this, just you can look it up on Google. It's the first thing that comes up. You just have to look up mouse acceleration and how to turn it off. Okay. So in Windows 10, you go to your Cortana search bar, you type in mouse, you click on mouse settings, you go to the pointer options tab, uncheck enhance pointer precision, and then you click apply and hit OK. All right. Okay, so moving on. It's important to note that there are different types of users for mouse settings, or sorry, there's different types of users for different mice. Personally, I like a much bigger mouse because my hand is kind of big, as you can tell. So what I use is a palm type mouse grip. This usually means that the mouse is in the palm of my hand, and that's the way that I prefer to aim. There is another option. There's a claw grip, which looks like this. And some people prefer doing it like this. If you're using a smaller mouse, that's a claw grip is usually better for you. So keep that in mind. That depending on the size of the mouse, it actually helps in aiming, depending on what type of grip that you use. Okay. So I like a bigger mouse because I do the palm grip. If you do a claw grip, a smaller mouse is usually better for you. There's also a different style of aiming. So there's two different styles. There's wrist aiming, which is what I prefer. And then there's arm aiming, which you can't really tell, but if you use your arm to aim. And then there's a mixture of both, where you move your arm and then you slightly compensate with your wrist. So I prefer a wrist aim because that's typically how I aim. Professional players typically use an arm aim. Such streamers like Kabaji, however, actually is different. He uses both. So it really comes down to what works for you as the player. This is something that you need to figure out. But in the long run, for the best muscle memory, it's better to use your arm. I've just been playing games for so long that I'm used to wrist. But if you use your arm, your muscle memory is going to be learning this stuff much better. The only downside to using your arm, though, is that it can make you very tired if you're not used to it. So just keep that in mind. If you're lazy like me and you just want to use a wrist, well, you can use a wrist. Or you can do both. It's whatever you want to do. Alright. So, gear. Let's see. Okay. So, depending on what kind of gear you have, what I mean by this is your computer screen, keyboard, mouse, etc. It can really make a difference in your FPS games. So what I mean by this, I'm sure you've heard of different monitors having 144 hertz, 240 hertz, 60 hertz, and you're kind of going, what the heck is that, right? So I'm going to go over this a little bit. All that means is your monitor is capable of pumping out frames per second in the game. And it's capable of capturing those frames per second, depending on the number. So if you're 60 frames per second, you can only capture a maximum of 60 frames. If you're 144 frames per second, that's the maximum. If you're 240, etc., etc. So, and then there's like HD screens and all this other stuff, but that doesn't really matter. Personally, I have a 144 hertz monitor. As you can tell in Overwatch in the top left corner, I am running this game at 154 frames per second, so I'm over it, but it is capturing every single frame on my monitor, and that's helpful. Why? It is helpful because there is no screen tearing. You're able to see people coming around corners clearer. It's not jumpy. and it can make a difference in first-person shooter games. Although it's not needed, so this is why you want to take this with a grain of salt. You can go with just the bare minimum of 60 frames per second, but it really depends on your reaction time. So it doesn't really matter if you have the best monitor in the world, but it does help. And gear just, it will help you. Having a better computer, having a better monitor, it will help you. I'm not saying it won't. But end of the day, if you're just trying to learn how to aim, if you're just trying to get better at shooting targets, you know, end of the day, it doesn't really matter. If you feel like you want to invest into something like that, then I would say go for it. It will help you. But I don't think it's necessary. It's really up to you. Just keep in mind that it does get very expensive. Okay? Alright, moving on to aiming. So we're finally getting to the main topic of this. Aiming. So there's different types of aiming. There's hit scan, which is what I'm on right now, and projectile, which is also what I'm on right now, since Soldier 76 has a projectile weapon. There's also another special type, which is flicking. But I'm not... I wouldn't recommend it, but it is a possibility. It depends on your playstyle. It does help to practice it, though.
Only gets better with age.
So let's see. So hit scan, what they do is you follow the target along, and it's essentially trying to keep your cursor on the head of a target and following them, and that's how you hit scan. Projectile, however, depending on the projectile, and this is a secret that I've learned over the years, is you don't have to direct hit people with the projectile. How I usually do it is I aim at their feet. So with the projectile weapon, with like Soldier 76, you aim at their feet, they take damage, and it just makes it easier to hit targets. And there's multiple heroes in Overwatch where you can do this. Sigma's one, where you just aim at their feet, and they take the full brunt of the damage. You got Pharah, you just aim at their feet. Although Pharah's a little different, you kind of want to direct hit with her, but it doesn't hurt to aim at their feet as well. Okay. Let's see what else. Junkrat's the exception. Junkrat is more just spam and hope that you hit something. You can sort of aim with him, but you kind of have to predict where people are going, and that's kind of where I'm getting at with a different type of projectile weapon, which would be Hanzo. Hanzo, you kind of have to predict where they're going, and you have to aim a little bit ahead in order to hit people. So that's where two different types of weapons come into play here. It's important to practice all three of these things before you go into a match, whether it be Apex Legends, Overwatch, you know, CSGO, doesn't matter. It's helpful to have practice. Make sure you can hit your targets. In hopes that you can do better in your games. The reason why I say this is because, you know, you can just go straight in and hope that you're going to do extremely well in competitive play, or you can just go straight in and play casually. But your aim is going to be off, at least for a little bit, because you have to warm up your aim. Most people who don't warm up have a hard time, and then they're just sitting there wondering, you know, what can I do better? Why am I doing so poorly? Well, probably because you didn't warm up. You only really need to spend maybe 5-10 minutes warming up. It doesn't take very long. There are other programs that you could use as well. There's one called Aim Booster, and there's another one called OSU. I'm sure many people have heard of these things. What's great about these is that you don't have to play anything. They're their own programs. They're free. OSU is its own video game, which is it's essentially moving your cursor to music. So I mean, that's up to you if you want to play something like that. It can help your aim if you're not very good at aiming, and it's pretty fun too. So I would give it a shot if I were you. Take a look at it. Take a look at it. Let me know what you think. I'll be posting this on YouTube, so I'll put links for those as well. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to move to aiming down sights versus not aiming down sights. Now, Overwatch, you don't aim down sights except for a few heroes like Ashe and Widowmaker. But there really isn't anything different in this game in comparison to Apex Legends, where you're aiming down sights. Because Apex Legends, you don't have to aim down sights, but you have the option to. Whereas this game, there's only a few heroes that can. So let's go ahead and move over to Apex Legends. Let me go back to the practice range real quick. Okay. Alright, we're on Apex Legends now. So, of course, you see the reticle. You don't have to aim down sights, but it certainly makes things better. So, that's without aiming down sights. That's aiming down sights. So, of course, you're a lot more accurate if you aim down sights than you aren't aiming down sights. Now, but it really all depends on how close you are to a target, what kind of weapon you're using, all that jazz. So I'm going to go over that. So essentially, from my knowledge, if you're using any kind of pistol, depending on the distance, you're going to want to aim down sights. It really, really helps, especially since, I mean, look at that crosshair. It's massive. I'm going to miss a lot of shots if I'm not aiming down sights. You see what I'm saying? So if you're using any kind of pistol, whether it be the P2020 or the Wingman, it's very, very beneficial to aim down sights. As far as submachine guns go, it's a little different. So let's go over these two submachine guns here, our R45, RE45, and the R99. So depending on the distance, with the RE45, you're not going to want to aim down sights if you're this close, right? You can clearly see that the reticle's on them. It's not going to miss. You're not going to have any issues. But if you're a little bit further back, it's still decent. You're going to want to aim down sights. Okay? So something like this, you're going to want to aim down sights and hope for something better. And there's also a couple of tips I can give you as well. If you're aiming down sights from a distance like this, it's helpful to burst fire, actually. That way you're a little bit more accurate. I've learned this over the years. I've also learned this through this game, that it's actually better to burst fire from a distance. Now, if you're up this close, you do not have to aim down sights. You do not have to aim down sights at all. Alright? And that goes for most weapons, with the exception of some pistols. Wingman, you don't have to aim down sights when you're that close, but it certainly does help if you can get those headshots. That's what makes the Wingman so incredibly powerful. Let's see. What's great about the R301 is you can tell that, of course, there's a different reticle here. It's good for close, medium, and sometimes long ranges, depending on if you get the hop up the ammo receiver. So for long ranges, you can swap it over to single fire mode, and essentially turn it into a wingman, right? Now, if you're closer, you don't necessarily have to aim down sights from this distance, but it certainly does help. And then, of course, if you're in your face, don't have to aim down sights. Okay. Moving on to the alternator. Alternator is a very, very good gun, surprisingly, but people don't think it is. You don't have to aim down sights with this gun. Not even a little bit. You don't have to aim down sights with this gun at all. But if you want to hit those headshots, you can aim down sights from any distance. And it still does a surprising amount of damage in a short amount of time. Okay. But it's really good because you don't have to aim down sights. Okay. So let's move on to a sniper rifle. This is essentially a sniper. Sniper rifles. Pretty much any distance you're going to want to aim down sights. And the reason why I say this is because it's a single shot gun, but it's pretty consistent if you're not aiming down sights. And this is where I'm going to get into something that's very interesting. If you crouch, it makes the reticle smaller. And that works for every single gun here. If you crouch, it makes the reticle smaller. You can actually land more shots by doing that. So if you don't have confidence in aiming down sights and somebody's in your face, you can crouch and shoot away and hope to kill them that way. If you have confidence in aiming down sights, well, aim down sights. Okay. Alright. Moving on to shotguns. Now this one's very interesting. Mozambique. Mozambique is interesting because you have to aim down sights with this gun. If you do not, I'm going to show you the spread on this. It's weird. Oops. Okay, so you can see the spread there. It's very large. But when you aim down sights, it makes it a much, much, much smaller, right? Okay. And Mozambique, paired with the hammer point rounds, it's actually a very strong combination. So let me strip the shields off this guy. And if you aim down sights, you can one-shot him, right? You have to aim down sights with the Mozambique. It's unfortunate, but that's how this gun works. If you don't aim down sights, then, well, you're not going to get the full damage, right? If I aim down sights, a little bit better. Alright. Moving on to the Evade. This gun's different. Shotguns are interesting because you don't necessarily have to aim down sights with them, but they certainly do help if you do. Depending on the distance. Most of the time, you do not want to aim down sights. You do not want to aim down sights with the shotguns. As much as possible. The only difference being the Peacekeeper with Precision Choke. Alright. So Peacekeeper with Precision Choke, you are going to want to aim down sights. You charge it up, shoot away, does 110 damage, right? This gun turns into essentially a sniper from a distance. It's insane. I'm going to go kind of far away and see if I could do the same amount of damage. Yeah, I can. 100 damage. 74. But to think that a shotgun turns into a sniper is ridiculous, right? Either way, if you're in their face, do not aim down sights. Even if you have the precision choke, it's not worth it. Not worth it at all. Okay? Alright. Moving on. We got some burst rifles. Let's go ahead and go with the burst rifles. Alright, burst rifles are usually better if you are aiming down sights. Otherwise, there's kind of a big jump, and you kind of have to aim towards their crotch in order to get the full damage off. So it is better to aim down sights. So you also have to keep in mind that the recoil on these guns you're going to have to aim down. And there are certain guns that have different patterns. So you're going to want to pull the mouse down when you're shooting. You don't have to do it a whole lot. I mean, I'm just doing it for, you know, effect. You don't really have to do that though. Hemlock's the same way, only not as heavy as the Prowler. Okay, so you still want to pull down. Not a whole lot though. What's nice about the Hemlock is you can swap it over to single fire mode. Essentially turn it into kind of a sniper if you want to. Alright. So Flatland's interesting because you don't have to aim down sights with this gun at about medium range. You can aim down sights with this gun if you want to, but I would recommend you do, because the headshots do double damage. But also what's interesting about the Hemlock is its pattern, right? So it does like an upwards Z, right? So you kind of have to pull downwards. Here, let me get some more ammo here, sorry. Kind of have to pull downwards in the same kind of pattern if you want to. Personally, what I do is I strafe left and right and pull down. And that kind of counterbalances the Z, at least for me. Takes some getting used to, of course, but that's just how that works. Alright, moving on to the LMG here. LMG is very, very good, because you don't have to aim down sights. Look at how small this reticle is. You don't have to aim down sights with this gun if you don't want to. If you want to, it's good because you can get those headshots, of course. But you don't have to. You can essentially turn this into a longer range weapon too. Let me grab a better scope for it. But you also have to keep in mind it kind of goes all over the place if you do that. So LMGs are kind of interesting in this game. Alright. Devotion's the same way. The only difference is it winds up and then does a ridiculous amount of damage. We're going to go over the charge rifle here. So charge rifle is very interesting because it is a hit scan that doubles as a projectile. Okay, so what do I mean by that? It starts off as a hit scan and then the final burst as a projectile. Right? So you kind of have to follow people and then try to hit them with that burst damage. The burst damage is where the damage is at, though. And you also have to keep in mind that the headshot damage actually is headshot damage. So you can essentially two-shot somebody with a burst rifle from a distance. Okay. Let's see. Triple take's interesting as well because it doubles as a shotgun. This gun's so weird. So up close, the spread makes it into a shotgun. It's pretty interesting. But up close, if you duck, aim for the head, essentially two-shot somebody with it, and you do not want to aim down sights if they're up close like that. If you are trying to actually snipe with this, you're going to want the precision choke. And what that does is it turns it into a single fire shot. And it's actually a pretty interesting gun. So if you headshot and then you headshot again, they're done. Alright. Okay, is there anything else I'm missing? I'm going to go over these guns real quick. No, I think that about covers it. Okay. Let's move on to the super powerful guns. Alright. L-Star. This one's interesting because if you see the reticle, it's very small. And it shoots very, very fast. You do not have to aim down sights with this, and you can aim down sights with it as well. It's up to you and what you want to do. Headshots are still headshots, so it's really up to you if you want to use it that way. Alright, Mastiff. Personally, this gun's weird because of how the spread is, right? Personally, I prefer aiming down sights with this gun at all times. because you can potentially one-shot somebody with it. It's a very disgusting gun. Very, very disgusting. Trying to not aim down sights is kind of bad, because the damage is not as much. Still does 144, but let's go ahead and aim down sights with this guy, right? Now I'm actually aiming at this guy's head. 216. Right? So aiming down sights with the Mastiff is very, very important. Moving on to Kraber. This gun's interesting. You can no-scope, but it's very finicky. You have to aim for like the left shoulder, I believe, while crouching. Yeah, there we go. Personally, you're going to always want to aim down sights with this gun. Reason why? Hit the headshot, almost 300 damage and one-shots anything. Doesn't matter what it is. This gun is insane. No, there is a very little fall, projectile fall. It's crazy. So if you ever pick up a Kraber, this gun's disgusting if you know how to snipe. Alright. Let's go ahead and go back to Overwatch.
Acknowledged.
Alright, so now that we're back on Overwatch. There is something that's actually kind of interesting that I've learned over the past couple of months, actually. I don't remember where I read this, but it is important to stay hydrated while you're playing an FPS shooter, because apparently that affects your aim. If you're not hydrated, it can actually make it worse for you. And I actually see streamers all the time just drinking non-stop water. So, I mean, if that doesn't tell you that there's some merit to that, I don't know what does. There's people that are always drinking water. It's good for you. So try to stay hydrated when you're playing an FPS game. It could actually potentially help your aim. Okay. Okay, so we're back on Overwatch because of multiple different reasons. This game's great. If you do not own it already, I'll recommend picking it up. The reason being is because it has a replay system. So, first off, if you want to get better at an FPS game, you're going to have to admit that you do make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, right? You have to admit that you're going to make mistakes, right? In order to admitting this, you have to understand that everybody makes mistakes. Sure. What could you do better, right? And so you have to learn from your mistakes in order to do that. What makes Overwatch great is that you can watch the replay of your mistakes, and you can improve off of them. The problem that most people have during FPS games is that they think that they do not need to watch a replay in order to get better, so they don't learn from the positioning or game sense or other situations where it would actually help you a lot. And I will be making a guide on how to climb through Overwatch and Apex Legends later, but truly think about that. If you're not learning from your mistakes, you're not going to improve, right? You actually learn from defeat more than you learn from winning. Sure, you're going to want to win. That's absolutely true. But if you're not learning from your mistakes when you're defeated, then you're probably not going to get any better than what you already are. So keep that in mind. Everybody makes mistakes. Even if you don't think you do, you have to take a look at the picture as a whole. You can't just take it as a slice. Okay? There's also another important step that most people don't really talk about. That is having confidence in yourself. Some of the biggest FPS streamers, Shroud, Kabaji, ML7, some of the people that I like to watch, They go through various lengths to do something that's crazy. But it's because they have confidence in themselves that they think they can do it, and a lot of the time they do. So they pull off some crazy stuff, man. They really do. And people are in awe about it. It's because they practice. They practice. So I have confidence that I'm going to hit this direct rocket. Right? I did. You have to have confidence in yourself to push forward and to do what you think that you're going to do. And here's the best part of it. If you don't do what you think you're going to do, you are testing the waters with what you personally can do and what you cannot do. So, you learn from that, and you can grow as a gamer, you can grow as an FPS shooter, you can grow as a person. And that's very, very important. If you're confident in your actions, you'll sometimes do amazing things. I can tell you firsthand that's helped me climb through multiple games, whether it be Overwatch, Apex Legends, whatever. But you also, there is one other part to it. You have to stay calm. So I know there's an adrenaline rush when you play FPS games, right? When you play first-person shooter games. So it can be, it can make you jittery. It can make you, make your aim a little bit worse because you're getting a boost of energy, or it can make you better. I don't know. It depends on who you are. But staying calm is key. Is absolutely key. If you're losing, it doesn't matter. You just got to stay calm. If you're getting destroyed by somebody and you need to back up, you just got to think rationally. That's kind of how things work. You gotta think things through, but you have to do it at a very quick pace, and that comes through time. You have to invest a lot of time into these games in order to be calm during certain situations and to focus and think quickly. All right. Okay. So that about covers pretty much everything. As I said, you're going to want to practice aiming. I would say, doing at least... I prefer doing it in Overwatch because there's so many different angles, but, doing at least 5-10 minutes, practicing your hit scan, practicing your flicks, and practicing your projectile. If you do this, every day, and you do this before you do your competitive game, and you enjoy yourself, fantastic. That's what I want to see. And that's what I want to hear, because that's why I'm giving you this guide. So I hope that these tips help you. I hope that you turn off mass acceleration, because most people don't know about that, actually. And I really do hope that everything works out for you as far as your games go. If you do like this content, please leave a like, let me know. Follow me on Twitch. I'll leave a link for it. If you have any questions, please leave them down below in YouTube. Thanks for watching.